P.J.E. Peebles, and he just got the Nobel Prize for helping invent the Big Bang Theory. And I had named my daughter, Allison, who's actually on right now for this Zoom. She was named after his wife because we were next door neighbors. So those were, really wonderful, wonderful times. And while I was in Princeton, we went to Brazil. And when we were in Brazil, we spent 2 months there, and Pele had just won the World Cup. And this started especially an interest of mine in sports, because he and the members of the team actually came to the little town right afterward where we were and spent 3 days at the end where I was staying. So I got to hang out, and all the kids came in, and I got to meet Pele and the captain of the World Cup team, and they were absolutely wonderful. And for years afterward, I put a big poster of Pele in a classroom where I was teaching, and I'd say to the kids, that man is one of the last gentlemen in the world. Look at him. And he was. So that was my introduction quickly to, got really more interested in soccer. Then later on, after in my early 30s, when I was divorced, I began to travel much more. And while I was traveling, coming back from Hungary, having a big donkey, one of these donkey salamis in my hand and a big spritzer bottle, I was on an Ural pass, and I went in, and it was first class, which I didn't like, and I spritzed water all over the compartment. So I went next door, and there was this man sitting there all dressed up, and he had his shoes off, and he put his, in his stockings, feet, and leaning across there, he said, come on in. And we started talking, and I was very enthusiastic about eye exercises and accelerated learning. And we just had this incredible conversation, went on for several hours. I was sad because he had a ring on his finger, but I said to him, well, that's all right. You and your family can come visit in San Francisco, and I'll take you around. I said, what do you do for a living? And he said, my family's in agriculture. And then he said, well, actually, I'm the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein. And, I figured that he was putting me on. I nearly said, yeah, I'm Princess Margaret or something, but I didn't. And it turned out he really was. And he said, call me Hans. And he told me all about what it was like growing up in the castle. And we became friends, not, long distance friends after that. And another year I went and I visited him in the castle. And this time I was very dressed up. I was all fixed up, much more than my Ural pass, my pearls and everything. And he said, we're very informal. We have VWs in the courtyard. And there was, a guard at the door that looked just like Disney. And I went in, and as I walked in, it was very blinding light. He came rushing over, and he was wearing Birkenstocks. And he shook my hand, and he said, you know that accelerated learning you told me about? I put it in all the schools in Liechtenstein. Jeez. And those eye exercises you taught me, they worked. And so, it was kind of cool. It was really a wonderful thing for me. And then 20 years later, to finish that story, I wrote a story about him, about this experience, and they published it in Lonely Planet, and I sent it to him, and he was very pleased. So that was part of my Liechtenstein adventure, and it was certainly one. After that, I moved to California with my daughters, and we never looked back. I was very interested in holistic health, and found out to my horror that most of the holistic health things were much too expensive for me to afford as a divorced woman. But I still got very, very involved in the whole idea. And while I did that, I had been studying Tai Chi with a dancer called Chung-Liang Huang, and he introduced me to a man called George Leonard, who was head of the Aikido dojo in Mill Valley. So I started studying with him, and I studied something called energy training, which was how you focus your energy. And it was sort of all fitting in with the accelerated learning too. And then we worked again even more. He had it on his best friend, who is Michael Murphy, who owns Esalen Institute. And Michael started a program for us where we were working, we were in a meditation group. And Michael's whole idea was, we all have extraordinary capacities. How can we make them even more? And he called this the Lewis and Clark expedition into the unknown. And he wrote like an 800-page book about unusual capacities. So I became very involved in that group. And actually, I still am to this day, working with how can we use what we have and go even further. And at that time, even though I'd been a Unitarian and an ardent member of the Unitarian Church, I joined the church when I was 9 in Oak Ridge. I stayed away from the Unitarian Church. I said, I'm Buddhist and Quaker, but I'm not Unitarian yet, because I was Unitarian. But then little by little, I decided that probably I ought to get back into where my home base was, which is this Unitarian Church. During that time, being a maverick, I held down about 15 different jobs. I had tenure when I was 33 in the high school, but I wanted always to do different things. And I was a single mother out here. So I thought I'd tell you very quickly, like 2 or 3 of the jobs I liked the most. I had one where I was a private eye. And I did that in a old house that looked like one of those Charles Adams houses in San Francisco. And that was really exciting, except the time when the woman who was very crooked got her crooked cop boyfriend to come. When I left, I had a strange feeling, and he ransacked the room. It was just like one of those stories you see in the mystery stories on TV. That's what happened to me. I came back and found everything looking just like that. So I quickly finished that job. And then I worked for Real People Productions for a while. And that was working with commercials, the kind where they say, this person didn't know that he or she was on television. Now that they are, so I would help cast the people. They'd say, find people that are the ages, from 25 to 40 that have a certain height and a certain look. And I'd go out and take Polaroids, and I'd say, would you like to come and just be part of, I wouldn't say a commercial, though they often knew. But after that, that was more fun than you can imagine. Working with camera crews were my very favorite things. And later on, I did get to make a commercial, which was great because I made $8,000 for 15 minutes worth of work. And I could have made even more if I'd have done other commercials I decided not to do. But it's a very quick way to make money. It's very nice. I also did training. I always was working with different populations. I've worked with Black populations. I taught for 11 years, sub-taught in San Rafael schools, and I work with Hispanic populations. And I trained with Hewlett-Packard. I love that work, doing diversity training, but not teaching people diversity. I was working with the diverse populations in leadership training, and I just adored that. And these people would come in, and they had been doing work on circuit boards. And I'd say to them, I'd interview them, and I'd say, what's your story? And they'd say, well, in the Philippines, I was a doctor, but I never told anybody these 20 years about it. So this is what you have to find out. Behind every person, there's a wonderful story, and it's there for the getting. And so basically, one of the other jobs that was the most vital for me was when I was training somebody. I was the first female speaker to the union in San Francisco for the fire department. And that was bizarre because they'd say things like, how much do you charge for your services an hour? They weren't really very nice, but those were the olden days. But the one person who came and asked me to coach them. I was in exams, was named Joe Medina. And he had been a battalion chief and made high grades, but he had to do oral exams. And we had no idea what he'd have to do. But for several years, I coached him, and he ended up making #1. And he eventually became the first Hispanic fire chief in San Francisco. So that was very, very exciting for me. And so I'm still continuing. Some of you may wonder what my hobbies and my loves are. I love to dance more than anything. I danced all over the Bay Area. I've been dancing since I was 9. Our Southerners tend to dance, you know, and we all danced. However, a few years ago, my foot dropped suddenly and I couldn't turn. And I only say this because a lot of you have seen me with my walking sticks. And this is the work that I did with, I think, George Leonard and Mike Murphy helped me a lot, because what it made me realize is that if you persevere and you keep on going, you can. I may not be able to, I might dance with the table and I might dance at the sink, but I'm still continuing and I'm still dreaming of getting back on the dance floor. So that's basically, I'm sorry I made it somewhat, I hope I wasn't too fast for you. It just, I didn't want to take up all your time. But if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. That was fascinating. Yes. Are there any questions?
Ted asked something, I can't see it.
I have something from Ted Gabler. Kathie, how can we help you to celebrate your significant birthday in August?
Ted is teasing me because one of my very first, I met Nani with Ted at Bonnie, and Ted and I are exactly the same age. And I tell people I'm 38 plus. I don't know whether Ted's saying he's 38 plus. I have a feeling Ted's saying we're coming up to a significant year this year, Ted and I.
What is that? Was a 0 at the end?
Well, it has a number 8 on it.
Oh. What is it?
Yes, so Ted and I will have our 80th birthdays this year.
Oh.
So now that he's teasing me, because we always tease each other about our birthdays. And my daughter Allison is open mouthed because she knows I never tell anybody how old I am.
See, that's how special we are, your family.
Yes. You are my family. I love you all so much. I think I can't thank you enough. You know, I sit in the choir and I look out at everybody. You know, I used to look at Jim and then Diana beside him at first because I sort of first got to know them, and Lisa, and then it just got bigger and bigger. So I thank this church from the bottom of my heart, and I thank Ginny and Jerry for pulling me into this choir, you know, and thank you all. That's all I can say. I just appreciate you so much.
Oh, well.
Kathie, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So it sounds like you're pretty fearless. And I'm wondering where you think that came from for you.
Well, I didn't think, I think part of it, my mother was the first white social worker in Harlem. And my father, I didn't say the most important thing, Nani, it's interesting, I left that out, Nani. My father never told me till I was 12, my grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. And it's interesting, I didn't know that till I was 12 years old. And after that, I could never see anything to do with any of that. And my father always said, we are all one world. He said, when I was undergraduate in Germany. And he said, it's your job to go out and make everyone in the world, you know, he said, the Hungarian thing is you have to put other people at ease and make them feel happy. So I think that I don't know. I just was born with that feeling that I wanted to explore, and I still do. I still want to go around the world maybe when I'm 90. Who knows?
I wait.
Yeah. Why wait? I'm going to try to do it sooner than later.
Connie,
Yes? Who
it
is
sounds like you had a wonderful father, first of all.
Yeah.
But second of all, I think I saw this whole thing in a movie, didn't I?
What?
I'm just thinking your life has been so dramatic that it seems like I must have saw a movie like this.
Well, you know, growing up in Oak Ridge was really like growing up in a very secure bubble. And I think Alan, if he is listening, will tell you that, because being in a government town in the South, we were still surrounded with scientists from all over the world. And I think the scientific spirit, which is if you have a brain, you should use it. If you have a chance to live it. And so we always expected you wouldn't have much money, but you would go out and adventure. And having the grandparents, you know, not ever knowing them and die the way that they did made me even more determined, Sandy, to get out there and do it while I could.
Well, all that, and you're so much fun. I mean, you're like one of the first 4 people I met in this congregation, and I just always enjoy your company and your positivity and your exuberance, and I really thank you for that and appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Who was that? Who spoke?
That
Sandy.
was Sandy
Sandy.
Krolik.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought that was Sandy Curling.
Kathy, I just keep seeing you at about maybe age 45. So whatever the other number is, you can forget about it. I'm curious, Swarthmore seems like an interesting choice from Tennessee, and how you came to go to a Quaker school.
Well, you see, I was very musical. The flute was my instrument. Music was my life. I played in the band all the way through, and that cushioned me also, LOY and music. And I got accepted at Oberlin, but I wanted right away, having been in the Unitarian Church, I wanted a small, very socially involved, high academic school. And I always worked toward that. So I got accepted at Swarthmore, and I found out later, I was in competition with people from Bronx School of Science, but I think geographical distribution helped me. But I always knew what I wanted that way. I was very clear. My parents mother had gone to NYU and daddy had been in, Stuttgart. So they didn't give me any college counseling at all. I just made up my mind. And the Quakers just seemed like a wonderful group, and it was a wonderful school.
What was your major at Swarthmore?
Swarthmore, it's a co-ed school. I wanted to go to a co-educational school, and it's very high academic, but the Quakers were known, we were just very much wanting. I bet John will tell you, the LRY people were really strongly into that stuff. And Lisa, don't you agree, John? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What was
It
your
was
major?
formative for so many people.
Yeah.
Obviously for you.
Yeah.
What was your major in college?
Oh, God. My major was just like my whole other part of my personality. I had an advisor who didn't rein me in. So I majored, I took Spanish and French, and I took so many different subjects, music, this and that, art history, that I ended up with no really clear major. And here I was married, and I had a child, and I was under 21. And so I defaulted into English, which was, I loved to read, but I didn't think was that having been a good Unitarian, we had to read everything at Swarthmore. I mean, if you read all of Shakespeare and all of Yeats and stuff, and I could never recognize the Christ imagery in anything because I was a Unitarian. So it was not so good. See, Sandy, I should have gone to Catholic.
Yeah.
Kathy,
Diana wants to speak.
Kathy,
Yes.
talk about having a child, but you said you got 2 children.
Well, no, I had my first child before. I have 2 daughters. the oldest one, I mean, my daughters are, I don't know if they want me to tell their age. Do you, Allison?
Well,
I
I
have-
laugh, Mom, because you're younger than your youngest child. That's what
Oh.
I think is so funny.
Well, my daughters are what, 55 and 58. And I
Yeah.
I had my first child 10 days before I was 21, and then went back to school 6 weeks later. And all my friends who I'm still in touch with, that's the good thing. I'm still in touch with all of these people I've mentioned, students from my Princeton days of teaching, cousins in Paris, people in Spain. My father and mother taught me that. They were very gregarious and very kind people. My mother was wonderful also. Jim.
Yeah, I'm just amazed in terms of all that you've done. And I wonder in terms of like which qualities that you have and characteristics allowed you to move from one place to another. I mean, I see you as fearless. I see you as loving to learn. I just amazing in terms of, and I would never guess that you're 80 years old, except that all that you've done. I mean, like what a full life.
I haven't done anything compared to you all. At first, I was scared. When Nani asked me to do this, I was really scared to show up with all of you because you're all so, you have done so much. I have just been, two things happened. One, I think I was brought up to be very compassionate and to love everybody in the world and to be understanding. My parents were really good role models for that. And when I took Aikido because in Aikido, you learn to blend with people's point of view. And also, they teach you how to fall, Jim. They say every down is an up. So I used to have the image that every time I'd fall down, and I fell down a lot, I would roll and get up. And that I think, and also when you're a single mother at 33 on, I'm very good friends with my ex-husband. He's in the East Coast though. So I was really basically the major, caregiver.
Very good. Any more questions?
Jim Harrison.
Yeah,
Jim?
Kathie, it sounds like, I was going to ask you whether you'd ever had periods where you've been down, but it doesn't seem like you've had any time to do that.
Well, you know what? Part of my weaknesses have been my strength in a strange way, because my weakness was that growing up in Oak Ridge, I never really thought, I thought I have a brain, I'll always make money some, and I'll be married, and I'm that generation, Ted will tell you, so I never thought about making money, and I never was really very practical about it. So I was so busy every time. You can't afford to be down when you have kids that are growing up. And then if I did get down, I have a wonderful family. I mean, and my daughter Allison has been calling me every day when I had difficult things and helped me to move and everything like that. My grandchildren are the loves of my life. And they're just, I had such a wonderful time being a grandmother. And I was around privileged at one point, all 6 were in Marin County. And those of you that are grandparents know it is the biggest joy. And it helps you be up. You just can't be as depressed when you have a grandchild. You just can't allow yourself to do that.
Well, I love all your family talk. That sounds very, very moving to me. All right, then.
John.
Yeah.
Jim, would you like to have the floor and tell us something about the future?
I was just going to ask a last question for you, Kathie, and that was the story of your backdrop. You've shared that with us in Soul Matters, but I thought the group would appreciate it.
Well, yes. One of the things that I've been lucky about, and all of you, it's an ad for 142 Throckmorton Theater in Mill Valley. My ex-neighbor is the set designer there, and he has helped me move all my little bits and pieces and recycle everything I had. I had to move 4 times in 4 years just recently, and I've landed on my feet in Fairfax at low-income housing. It's wonderful, it's brand new. But this picture was a piece of the set, And we did this for an ex-boyfriend of mine who was a doctor. He wanted to have a veranda in Jamaica. So this was a piece, we put this in his office and decorated it. And sadly, he passed away. So I inherited this piece that just moved everywhere with me. And it makes me happy. You say, what makes you happy? I look out and I'm in the veranda in Jamaica.
That is very good. Very good.
Question. Did you talk about more than one marriage? Because if you did, it didn't.
No, I had one marriage. I've gone out with a number of people, but I didn't, having been the single mother for a while and everything, I just didn't do it. So here I am, single and enjoying my life, but that's the way it has been.
Sounds like you're available.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like the single life. I love men, but I also love being single too. So, you get used to, watching your own programs and doing your own things. So I love it all. Dancing did a lot for me. See, I knew so many people from the Art Deco Society on down to everywhere else in the Bay Area that was a huge social source for me. So that was very hard. And that's when I was down. It took me a while, John. I just didn't go near any dancing for a while. And now I'm back talking. I'm talking to these people on Facebook. You have to face your own sadness,
Thank you very, very much for your honest, clear, fun way of inspiring us. Thank you.
Well, thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Jim, it's your turn now.
Really, hats off to you. Hats off to you, Kathie.
Oh,
Hats
thank
off to
you,
you,
Catherine.
really.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Nani, by the way, who is, one of the first people I met, one of the people that I just adore in this church amongst all of you. Jim, go ahead.
So speaking of Nani, so it's a tough act to follow. As I told it, people have asked me, why am I doing this? Because I'm in the facilities committee and I've got lots of things. But Nani can be very persuasive. You probably know that. But so here I am doing something. What is that old comedy channel? They used to say, now for something completely different. I don't remember what that was, but anyway, something different. So there's 3 of us on this team that are going to try and take over for Nani, but it's going to be tough. And that's Diana Vine and Ginny Job and myself. And so 2 weeks from now, you'll have to put up with us and hopefully we don't screw up too bad.
Well,
This goes to go you that it takes 3 people to.
For
To
sure.
do what Nani does, right?
Tough act to follow.
Always had so much help. Right now in the Zoom thing with all the technology. And in the fireside room in the old days, the people, Gretchen is here. She used to bring the refreshments.
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot by myself. I mostly talked people into it.
When did this originate? The Nani, when did the program actually start?
Before I came, it was 31 years ago. It was already established. And it kept dropping on and on, in and out, depending on whether there were people willing to push.
But before that, originally, how did it and when did it start? And do other congregations do the same thing?
Oh, I don't know about other congregations. It was started by Dick and Marge Park.
Really?
Yay, Dick.
Well, it wasn't so much me as Marge, and there was one other woman, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was mostly Marge and one other woman who did it.
Do you remember the date? Dick?
Joe Hessler?
No, it wasn't.
No.
What was the date? In the
What year?
back in the 70s, late,
Okay.
I think maybe late 70s.
Well, then we need to thank you for that and then thank Nani. You've done a wonderful job for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, Kathie.
Done right.
Thank you, Dick.
Anything else? Okay, so we'll see each other again in about 2 weeks, is it?
Yep, 2 weeks.
2 days. We'll see each other in 2 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that too.
Yes, isn't that nice? I love that.
And
That's
who
really
will be the remarkable person in 2 weeks?
Do we
Who
know?
knows, Jenny?
Craig Cohen.
Wow.
Oh,
Yay,
all
Craig.
right, Craig.
Oh, now we'll get a massive people showing up. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
At 30, yeah. Fine.
Hopefully I get the video and the audio straightened away by then, Craig.
Yes.
We'll see.
You're doing
got
fine,
Rich to
Jim. You're
help.
doing
You're doing
fine.
fine.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Kathy.
Thank you, Jim. Thank
Thank
you, Nani.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye, sunshine.
Goodbye, dears.